Let's learn something really quick.
If you got the time, absolutely. And you got the discipline, there's no question about it.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great practice to put into your everyday life, you guys.
You generally regret the things you don't do, not the things you did do. Let me say it that way.
Mic drop. This was just awesome. I love meeting my guests in person, and it's a whole nother animal, and the energy is just electric. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bringing incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a prominent psychologist, author, and co-host of the insightful podcast, When East Meets West. Please welcome Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here. I'm trying to work towards my label-free life, but maybe you can help me get there.
Yes, we should all aspire to live just label-free, like just free, like doing whatever we want to do, no judgments, no like self-limiting beliefs, and being a good person.
Yes.
First and foremost.
It's like, I think we learned, it's like the golden rule. I mean, do unto others as you want done to you, but also in like kindergarten, you sort of learn like, I always say like, just don't be mean, or don't be like add pejorative word that you want to enter in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's our lives are a journey, right? And so it takes us down many different paths. And for me, like the label free came from just a lot of different traumatic experiences. And I just decided that those no longer served me. And I no longer wanted to carry that label of going through that with me. The experience is never going to go away because that's part of what makes me who I am today. But I no longer wanted to carry that garbage like that. I had to leave it at the curb and just be done with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I do for a living, because I think a lot of us carry stuff, and I love that you mentioned it that way, because it's a beautiful metaphor, because I'll often say to people, like, whatever you're carrying, like your knapsack is super heavy, but if you just leave it in here, you don't have to carry it. Like, that's part of my job, is to help you carry it, or just to drop it off and like, let's burn it.
Yeah. Well, I like that. Let's burn it for sure.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to comment and say that I love his studio setup, you guys, and you'll be seeing that from me soon. So I just have to say I'm a little jealous of it. He's got like the full thing going on. So you're very passionate about mental health and holistic well-being. And I love the holistic part. So I kind of want to understand like what that means to you and how do you apply that in the work that you do?
So holistic is comprehensive. The way I think about holistic is it's behavioral, it's strength-based, it is focused on mindfulness, it is about well-being. And this is a word that's kind of overused right now. Not in a negative, so that's not a label. It's just the observation that a lot of people are sort of marketing things that are wellness or well-being based, or you go to the supermarket, like what's actually organic,
Yeah.
Right. And so these are all things that you want to think about as you consider improving your life. And so one of the things I do is help high performers perform at a higher level, and that's really kind of beautiful, because they're already super productive and super, performant. Like they're performing really high. Right. But if you are more holistic, and that means like, are you living aligned with your values? Are you doing things that are consistent with who you want to be? Because when you're not, it's not holistic. If I'm just working, I've got some finance guys, they might have a ton of money in the bank, but if I'm working 80 hours a week and I can't enjoy the money, what's the point of having all that? And you may, maybe you leave it to your kids, but you can't even see your kids enjoy it. So like you're waiting, you set up a trust fund so they can have it later, but what about giving to them now? And that's at one end, but I also like holistically help disabled people kind of get the resources they need, right. Like social services. And can we, I'm in New Jersey, and we have a really high population of people with developmental disabilities, usually because people relocate here if they have a child with, say, autism or some other disorder, because we have some amazing resources here, but also helping them kind of get connected. That's also holistic well-being.
Wow. Look at you. I love it. I want to highlight something really quick. I think that there's a misconception that people that are high performers don't need help with their mental health.
Yeah. Well, are you a tennis fan by any chance? Okay, you don't have to be.
No.
Well, I say that because we just got to the U.S. Open, at least in the New York area. And if you watch, you see that every athlete has at least 4 to 6 coaches in their box.
Oh, wow.
There's often a mental skills coach. And so every high performer needs a coach. And every person has mental health.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so there's not, any celebrity that you love, they have mental health. And because mental health is health. It's,
Right.
it's not to say that they're, psychotic or paranoid or, maybe even OCD, they don't have to have something that's like super pathological, but they have at least the six basic emotions. And from time to time, because life is lifing, they'll have some experience where they are struggling with something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're only human, and I'm a pretty happy person, and I'm pretty good at managing my stuff. But I had some family stuff recently that kind of like gave me a little mini meltdown, and
Yeah.
I was very open about it. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm only human, and I mean, I'm
Yes.
fine now, but like
Yeah.
you can only take so much. And then when something's happening in your life, you don't know how to deal with it, chances are you're going to have a little bit of a breakdown.
Mini meltdowns are like humbling in a way. I'm sorry. Maybe it didn't feel that in that moment. And I don't want anyone to have that. I'm in the sort of business of kind of, we say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yeah.
And so everyone's going to have some pain, but I think that's the humbling piece of it, to like sort of be reminded of, oh yeah, like, cool, I'm real, I'm emotional, and
Right.
this just got a little better of like, this got the best of me, and that's fine.
Yeah. No, I just had a moment, and I'm so much like, I'm glad I had that moment, because if I didn't
Yes.
have that moment, I would continue to suffer in that place. And I don't know, like, if you can tell this about me, but I'm a pretty high performing person. I'm very type A. Like, I do probably the work of like 10 people every day. And like, when I have a lot going on, I operate more efficiently. And so for me to have that moment, it was like I needed that release, and I'm totally fine now. Like, it's like, okay, and just keep it moving.
Just keep it moving. I don't need a PhD to tell them about you, but
So
I love that about you.
yeah. And the holistic piece, I like that. So I like that you say that people have to be living in line with their values.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is so basic, but so misunderstood, and why
Yeah.
people almost create their own mental health issues.
Yeah, I've actually been finding myself saying we make things more difficult a lot lately. We really do. I mean, I think that's sort of the human condition. And I know that some listeners might not like that, or that might just sound like a label, but there's a truth to it. I think if you reflect on the challenge you had recently, like, what was your role in it? And that's what we do in my work in behaviorism, is like, what role did I have in it? And am I keeping some of these behaviors cyclical? Like, because oftentimes things are repeating themselves.
Well, for me, if you want me to answer that question, I was breaking a cycle. Yes. So like, that was, I broke a generational issue that kept going and going, and I just wasn't going to tolerate the toxicity anymore. And so,
Good.
because this person wanted to come to the table and talk to me, like, have a normal conversation, I was hurting, and I finally just had a little breakdown, and then I was just done with it. I'm like, okay, I see where I stand. I'm just going to keep it moving. I'm not going to entertain this anymore. And so for me, that was the healthiest thing that I could do.
Yeah, breaking cycles. I love that you said that, and thanks for sharing, because it's a thing that all of us need to do. It's not label free around that. It's not it's not like feeling shame, because shame and guilt are really powerful emotions. We have researchers, like Brene Brown, like, studying this, and we recognize that those emotions are so powerful, and they hold us back. So what can we do to break that cycle? So recognize when it's there, and then commit to a new action. And that's where the values come in, because the values are sort of our roadmap to where we want to go to that next action.
Absolutely. And it's not easy. It's not easy breaking those. So,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
So when you work with someone, and if you are listening to them, and you can tell that what they're doing is not in line with their values, how do you point that out for them to understand that? And because people could be living their lives and thinking like, this is my best, I'm living my best life, but that doesn't feel right. And they're having,
Yeah.
they're having their hard time wrapping their head around it, and they just don't feel fulfilled. How do you help them find that answer?
So there are value inventories, so there's sort of tools and instruments that we use to help people kind of evaluate, so they can self-reflect.
Yeah.
But as a cognitive behavioral therapist, I mean, we are like coaches. Like, so I can highlight discrepancy. There's sort of interventions we have just to help people and guide them to there. And then straight up, if I'm working with someone for a long time, I just say it. Like, we don't really beat around the bush. And it was like, look, I could be wrong, but this is what I'm picking up on, and then offer my interpretation. And then if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if I'm not, then it allows us for like, say, okay, cool. So now what? And that's what we do in behaviorism and this sort of holistic well-being is the now what?
Yeah.
I had a client recently who was like, I'm really insightful. They're like, I know what I'm doing and what I'm doing, but then I've known that for a long time, but then nothing changes. And I was like, well, that's like, cool. That's dope. Insight is like one piece of the puzzle. It's committed action. That's really the challenge after.
Yeah, like keep doing the same thing over and over again is insanity.
That's what they say. That's the definition.
And it's a little even more crazy if you actually can acknowledge it.
That's exactly right. Yep. I can acknowledge I'm doing it.
That word, but
Yeah, it's okay. We're allowed to. We're friends here.
Yeah, we are. We're tight. We're tight.
Yeah.
You're also an author. So tell us about it's a workbook, mindfulness workbook for beginners.
Yep. So it's one of them. That's a book that's about mindfulness. It's actually the publisher said it's like the first to market that's just general mindfulness. So most listeners have probably heard the word. When I started doing this 15 years ago, people didn't know what mindfulness was. And so the books that are out there like mindfulness for eating or mindfulness for anxiety, very specific. So this workbook is like, it could be for like a stay-at-home parent, or it could be for a CEO. It could be for an elite athlete or for, a high school athlete. Like it could be for anybody just to like learn how to do mindfulness and then how to integrate it in your life. One line in the book that I always like is like, you don't need a fancy membership to do this.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think mindfulness is another term that's used a lot now these days.
Yes.
In your eyes, what does that mean for someone? I know what it means for myself. And, the audience probably listening, oh, I know what mindfulness is, but
yeah,
for you and what you teach in your workbook, what is it for someone how can someone that's listening understand what it is?
So John Kabat-Zinn defined it as what you're doing on purpose in the present moment and without label, I'll put it for you, but without judgment.
Okay.
And so like if you're cooking, just peel the potatoes, right?
Yeah.
So because sometimes you're thinking about the asparagus and the fish, and you got to clean it. And, is my partner going to like the food, or my manager at work was an ass today, or, there's always something else we're doing. And so just peel the potatoes, just feel the potato, smell the potato. And so whatever you do that with intention. You do it in that present moment. So with your feet grounded where you are, because a lot of times we are holding on to something from the past or worried about the future. And that's where the suffering comes in. And that's where like my Zen training comes in of like, if you just sit, meditate, kind of connect with the present moment, it's not always pleasant, straight up, right? It's not meant to be pleasant. It's just meant to at least accept that that's where you are in that moment. And that's what mindfulness is. And I always think of mindfulness as like this umbrella. And there's lots of different ways to do it. You could do it from hiking. You can do it from cooking. You can do it from meditating. You could do it from art. You can do it from exercise. You can do things mindfully.
Yeah. I've found personally that if you can exercise, because it's an exercise, it's a practice. It's not something that comes easy because it's fleeting too. If you aren't intentionally being mindful and whatever it is that you're doing in that moment, and if you can become good at it, it's almost like a meditative state for me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the feeling that you get afterwards is almost euphoric.
Yeah. They call that flow. So Eugene Genlin had this thing called focusing or flow, actually from University of Chicago. And so that was like the initial sort of place where in the 80s this started. Obviously it started thousands of years ago, with sort of Eastern principles, but the West got hold of it. John Kabat-Zinn was sort of the first practitioner who used it with chronic illness or in Boston. And then, Eugene Genlin was using this technique of focusing, just trying to get, people kind of to focus, which is also this idea of being mindful. So yeah, it could be a lot of different things. I love to hear that you say that you reach it during exercise.
Yeah. Exercise, cooking, cleaning, folding the laundry, just being there in that present moment and not allowing like the monkey mind to go crazy, because that's what we're fighting against and what we're trying to train and, and exercise that focus, which is very important. I'm sure it helps with many different things with our brain health and mental health and all of those things. So no, I love that. I had to ask about that just because I think that it's very important. What other books have you written?
So I did do a book on meditation for anxiety. So I helped people kind of maybe build in these ways that they could, yeah, because I have people come in, they'll be like, I'm anxious. I'm like, good. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, well, that's what's kept you alive. Like we need anxiety. Anxiety is an adaptive emotion, fear, so I always say, like, if I walk outside and there's a bunch of tigers out there, I love animals. I don't want to go pet them because I want to be a little afraid of them because they might eat me.
Right.
And so fear is adaptive, and so anxiety is. But I think, finding meditation and to build a relationship with the anxiety allows people to suffer a little bit less.
I find that very fascinating because I have people in my family that have almost debilitating anxiety, and
Yeah.
I don't even know how they would even begin to try to meditate with that kind of. And I almost think that, and here's my opinion, and I don't think they listen to the show, so I'm not worried, but I almost think that it's self-inflicted because they smoke so much weed. And
Oh, yeah.
and I've smoked weed. I've got a past. And there are certain strains of marijuana that's going to give you more anxiety. I've experienced it. And I think that if you're doing something like that constantly, where your body's never detoxing from that substance, I think that your body's going to adapt to a different way of being because it's not clear. So
You're nail on the head. So chronic, marijuana use, you dislearn how to cope, and then chronic use also leads to some significant mental health issues. So there's actually like an abundance of literature that shows it could actually lead to development of schizophrenia.
oh wow.
Yeah, and then of course with anxiety, I mean, I see that a lot in people, and so the way I treat that is just finding a healthier relationship with it. So you could smoke weed, you could do edibles, but if you're doing it like 100 to 300 milligrams a day, or at least even every day,
Every day.
it's
Yeah.
nothing every day is good. Even showering every day is not, I mean, probably just brushing your teeth is the only thing that's good to do every day, but there's a lot of things that are not meant to be done every day.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. So, can you just maybe share a couple of quick tips for people that might have anxiety and how they can implement meditation to help them cope with that a little bit better?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the monkey brain, and I love that you said that because you said like we're fighting against the monkeys, I think you said. And so that was the image I had. And so the interesting thing of that is that you're right, and a lot of people are doing that. And so you're fighting against yourself, though.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the hardest part, is that like your family members or the people that wouldn't know how to meditate because their anxiety is so debilitating, the first thing you have to do is radically accept and let go.
Yeah.
Because what we usually do is we're holding on to the anxiety with like a death grip.
Yeah.
I watched my mom flying growing up, and she couldn't let go of,
Yeah, mine too.
of the armrest that, as an adult, it's like that didn't change the trajectory of that flight.
Yeah. Right.
And so again, you could be an anxious flyer, you could be all these things, but the practice is, how do I just radically accept and let go? So you learn that through meditating. Meditating is challenging. The actual formal meditation I'm talking about. So the book does instruct how to formally meditate. I've studied now for 15 years with my Zen teacher, Robert Kennedy Roshi. And so I've studied Zen Buddhism and, put that and integrate that into this practice. And the discipline of sitting is one that just teaches us something that like nothing else can teach us. The brain is busy. The body does not want to stay still. Sometimes I'll have a 3, 4, 5 day retreat and I'm sore afterward. And all I've been doing is sitting 16 hours a day,
That's a lot of hours a day.
but sitting, and it's like, I'm not exercising or doing the things that you and I would do at the gym or in other sort of activities. So that's an interesting thing to reflect on, that just the posture itself is actually really difficult. So, yeah, I mean, so radically letting go, practicing radical acceptance, trying to find some formal place and some formal practice of sitting still. Doesn't have to be cross-legged, or, you can work up towards that. And then just trying to like not fight yourself. I mean, oftentimes all of anxiety is about perception.
Yeah.
And it's usually just it's pretty selfish actually, because it's so inward focused that it doesn't take into any other context.
Yeah. Let's talk about your podcast before we start saying goodbye and wrapping things up. When East Meets West. It's an insightful podcast. What can people get from that?
So we bridge, as you might not be surprised, Eastern spiritual practices. So my Zen practice and my co-host, Dr. Nikki Rubin, with Western behavioral science. So we're both psychologists. We're both cognitive behavioral therapist psychologists. She practices yoga. I've had my years of Zen training. And so what we do is we take these principles of, Western behavioral science, so things like we're talking about today, and then integrate that with Eastern spiritual practices. So kind of some education. I do some Zen teachings in there. But we talk about all things. Like there's really, if you think about the news and all the things that, kind of we're flooded with on social media, or all of it is about behavior. Right now we're all in politics, it's behavior. Doesn't matter what side you're on, it's behavior. So it's opinions, it's narratives, it's perspective taking.
All that stuff that's not facts.
It's cognitive dissonance. I mean, it's lots. I mean, well, we see the facts of it. So we could say, okay, this is sort of, what's going on. So that's one thing. But sports and all celebrity news, breakups and divorces, and, J-Lo's breaking up, divorcing again. All these things are related to some kind of behavior. So we just break some of that stuff down, like how we would treat it and sort of things. It's always like a takeaway for how people can, but it's applicable, but not therapy.
Okay. Yeah. It's a good way for people to kind of wrap their head around maybe a certain behavior that they're experiencing in their life, or an opinion they have on a behavior that you guys are breaking down and maybe explaining to them a little bit better.
Exactly.
They don't have the label on it or judgment.
There it is.
Do you like that? Dr. Pete, where can people find you, connect with you, purchase your books, and learn more about you and your podcast?
So all things official Dr. Pete. So officialdrpete.com, and all the social handles are official Dr. Pete.
Excellent. You guys can put those links in. I'll put a couple of those links in the show notes. So if you connect with Dr. Pete, want to purchase his books, learn more, tune into his podcast, go to the show notes wherever you're picking this episode up at, either YouTube, audio, what have you. Those links will be there. Click the links, go follow him, reach out to him. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. This is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So stop fighting yourself.
Yeah, no, I love that. So true. So simple, but so true. I think some of us just we're comfortable with the suffering. We don't know what it's like to not suffer.
Yeah, I could tell you it's pretty peaceful.
You're preaching to the choir, man. Okay, it's taking a long time to get here, but we're here now.
Preach. Yeah. No, I mean, look, and you and I both know it's not easy, like you said. And it's a journey. I think you started that off before we started recording. Life is a journey. And so I don't say that to say that, invalidate, or that it's just so easy to let go. It's taken years and I'm still suffering. So it's not that, not that I live in peace all the time. The Dalai Lama doesn't live in peace all the time, right? He probably gets frustrated if his flight gets canceled too.
As we all do, rightfully so.
Right.
Sad note, Dr. Pete, thank you so much for being such a great guest and talking about, we got a little deep there and talking about something, but it was very relatable. I feel like for the audience to kind of understand a little bit more about anxiety, mindfulness, meditation, and just the behaviors that come along with all that stuff. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.